Vanakkam. Hello friends. We have been seeing the history of some of the prominent chieftains of the Sangam age, their history giving us a glimpse into the way and life of the Tamil people, about the values and the ideals that dictated their lives. Now, there are two great Sangam chieftains who have the honor of one of the Pathupattu works, the 10 Ideals, being dedicated to them. Thondaiman Ilanthiraiyan, the hero of Perumpaanatrupadai, and Oiman Nalliyakodan, the hero of Sirupaanatrupadai. In this episode, we will trace the history of Ilanthiraiyan through the Perumpaanatrupadai. Falling under the Aatrupadai genre, Aatrupaduthadal meaning showing the way, where a bard shows the way to another bard to go to the patron who gifted him with wealth, thereby trying to alleviate the poverty of his fellow bards. A unique genre of poems found nowhere else in the world, attesting to the highly evolved and refined Tamil culture that lays stress on social ideals. Perumpaanatrupadai literally means the guide for the bards with the large lute. The lute being a kind of precursor to today's veena known as the yar, it was a stringed instrument much shorter in length, for the poems show how these bards carried them while playing them. There were 4 kinds of lutes as recorded in the Sangam works: the Periyar that had 21 strings, the Maharayar with 19 strings, the Sahodayar with 14 strings, and the Sengotayar with 7 strings. So here the guide for the large lute would probably imply that the bards were playing the Periyar. This 500-line poem is composed by Kadiyallur Urthirankannanar, who has also authored the Patinappalai, one of the Pathupattu works in praise of the great Chola king Karihalan, about whom we've seen in detail in a previous episode. I will leave the relevant link here. Kamil Zwelabil, the noted Tamil scholar, points out that this work should have been composed towards the end of the 2nd century Common Era. Ilanthiraiyan, the hero of the Perumpaanatrupadai, belonged to the Neithal regions, that is the littoral or coastal plain, and he belonged to the Thirayar clan. He ruled over the regions of Thondai Mandalam. In his The Chieftains of the Sangam Age, K.D. Thirunavukkarasu traces the rule of the minor kings through an interesting study of the geographical areas that were ruled by them. According to him, Thondai Mandalam comprised southern portion of today's North Arcad and Chengalpattu districts, Chittoor and parts of Nellore up to the river Swarnamukhi, and also included Vengadammalai, that is today's Tirupati. In an Agam poem, the poet Thayan Kannanar records, Vinainavil Yane Viralpor Thondayar, Inamazhai Thavalum Yetru Aru Nedungotu, Vongu Vel Aruvi Vengadathu Umbar. The Vengadam hills of the Thondayar, who were victorious in battle with skilled war elephants. Again, Kalladanar sings in a Kurundogai poem, Vanther Thondayar Vazhai Amal Adukathu. Vazhai meant the Surappunnai, a kind of tree, the mountainous regions that had dense forests of the Surappunnai that were ruled by the Thondayar clan. So the Thondai kings represented a very ancient and powerful clan, and they ruled with Kanjipuram as their capital. Some scholars opine that the Pallavas later rose from this clan. In the Perumpaanatrupadai, the poet praises Kanjipuram as Viravu Mempatta Pala Viral Moodur, an ancient victorious town where people celebrated year-round festivities, implying that Kachimoodur must have existed at least a few centuries before the time period of Perumpaanatrupadai, which is the 2nd century Common Era. The poet sings of the valor of Ilanthiraiyan, which he says was greater than that of the Moovendar, the great 3, Alladu Kadinda Arampuri Sengol, Palvel Thirayar Padarhuvir Ayin. Your poverty will be removed if you go to Thiraiyan, who has an army of spears and a scepter of justice. Irunilam Kadanda Thirumaru Marbin, Munnir Vannan Pirangadai, Annir Thiraidaru Marabin, Uravon Umbal. He belongs to the Thirayar clan that rules over the waves of the very ocean wherein resides Thirumal, who is the very color of the ocean, carrying Thirumagal on his chest. Here, Irunilam Kadanda refers to one of the stories of the Dasavadaram, the Vamanavadaram, where the Lord crosses the earth and the skies in 2 steps. Here, Thirai Taru Marabin Uravon simply meant the king whose clan was associated with the waves of the ocean. But later, this Ilanthiraiyan was made a character in the epic Manimehalai, composed by Seethalai Chatanar, that came at least a century later, and a mythical story was woven around him of how he was born to a Chola prince and a Naga princess, how as a baby he was kept in a box and left to float on the ocean waves, and the Thirai, the waves, brought him to Kanjipuram, from where he ruled, hence his name Thiraiyan. This indeed is a mythical tale, but as Tamil scholars for a long time believed in the historicity of the Silappadigaram and Manimehalai, many of the early commentators interpreted this particular line, Thiraitharu Marabin Uravon, using this mythical tale, which of course made him out to be from the lineage of the Choras, which is not true. Malardalai Ulahattu Mannuyir Kakum Murasu Mulangudane Moovarullum. Greater than the great three who protect this earth with their roaring drums, the poet uses beautiful similes. And in one place where he describes how a bard who had just received wealth from the king and was guiding the other bards goes, Peruvaram கூர்ந்த கானம் கல்லென கருவி வானம் துளி சொரிந்தாங்கு யாம் அவனின்றும் வருதும். Like a dry forest land, parched without water for long, which is suddenly drenched in a downpour of heavy rain amidst thunder and lightning, பழம்பசி கூர்ந்த எம் இரும்பேர் ஒக்கலொடு வழங்கத் தவா அப்பெருவளன் எய்தி வால் உளை புரவியொடு வயக்களிறு முகந்து கொண்டு. We are returning our very large family, which was suffering from hunger for a very long time, after receiving gifts of horses and elephants and wealth from Thiraiyan. There is nothing much of historic data in the work itself. The poet sings of bloody battles fought by Ilanthiraiyan, but does not mention any contemporaneous kings against whom the battles were fought. The poem is, however, an invaluable source of the socio-economic history of the Tamil people. While detailing the people belonging to the 5 landscapes and their occupations, many interesting facts are recorded. As the bards moved from one landscape to another, they followed the routes of the commercial caravans, the Vaniha Chathu of those days. Miriyal Punarporai Thangiya Vadu Aal Nonpurathu Anar Sevi Kaludai Saathodu Valangum Ulgudai Peruvali Kavalai Kaakum goes a line. Here Miriyal meant pepper. Sacks of pepper were loaded onto donkeys, forming a caravan going along protected toll roads. Here, the word Ulgudai Peruvali denotes a toll road. The forked paths used by the merchants were protected by soldiers wielding bows and arms. Highway robbery seems to have been a menace even then, and Uruthirankannarar himself records in an Ahananuru poem, Saathu Erindu Adarkootu Unnum Anangudai Pahali Koduvil Adavar, harsh men with curved bows and fierce arrows, who attacked and killed merchant traders and ate their loot. So merchants on these trade routes were protected by Thiraiyan's soldiers, for which a toll must have been collected. The bard who is guiding the other bards sings, Attam selvor alarataki kaipurul vavvum kalavu er vaalkai kodiyor indru avan kadiyudai viyanpulam. In his protected land, there are no cruel bandits who waylay and kill passers-by even as they scream. Naseivuli tangi senmo iravala. Rest wherever you desire, relax and proceed. And he continues further, Sevvarai nadan senniyam yenine deiva madayin thekkeilai kuvayi num paidir kadumbodu padam miga peruveer. If at all you are waylaid by the Einer, the bandit people, you just need to mention that you are bards who sing the praise of Ilanthiraiyan. They would at once treat you as guests and serve a big feast on the leaf of the teakwood as if offering to the gods themselves. So, such was the respect and the fear that Ilanthiraiyan commanded. In an interesting observation of the Aichir women, the herdswomen of the Mullai Nilam, the poet points out how they were astute business women. சிறுகுழை துயல் வரும் காதின் பனைத்தோள் குறுநெறி கொண்ட கூந்தல் ஆய்மகள் அலை விலை உணவின் கிளைவுடன் அருந்தி goes a line. The cattle herder woman is dark and pretty. She wears small earrings that sway as she walks. Her arms are like bamboo. She feeds her family with the money from the buttermilk that she sells. So what does she do with the profits that she makes? நெய்விலை கட்டி பசும்பொன் கொள்ளாள் எருமை நல் ஆண் கருநாகு பெருவும் மடிவாய் கோவலர் குடிவயர் சேப்பின். She does not buy gold with the profit that she makes from selling her ghee. Instead, she buys buffaloes and fine pregnant cows. Well, with more mouth to feed, more cattle and not jewelry would have been her priority. Two very interesting references show the footwear that people wore in those days. தொடுதோல் மரீயி வடு ஆள் நோனடி விழுத்தண்டு ஊன்றிய மழுத்தின் வன்கை. These lines talk of a cattle herder who has scars on his feet from where he wore his leather slippers and marks on his strong hands that hold the rod that drive the cattle. Yet another line goes, மலையவும் கடலவும் மான்பயம் தருவும் அரும்பொருள் அறுத்தும் திருந்து தொடை நோன்தாள் அடிப்புதை அரணம் எய்தி படம்புக்கு பொறுகருணை. There are merchants who trade with rare things that are brought from the mountains and the oceans, and they wear body shirts and sandals that cover their feet. Here the term adipudai referring to a covered footwear like a shoe. Even more surprising, while talking of the Marutham landscape, the poet records how there were sugar crushing mills in those days. Anangudai யாழி தாக்கலின் பலவுடன் கணம்சால் வேழம் கதழ்வுற்றாங்கு எந்திரம் சிலைக்கும் துஞ்சா கம்பலை விசயம் அடுவும் புகைசூழ் ஆலைதொறும் கரும்பின் தீன்சாறு விரும்பினர் மிசைமின். The unending roaring sounds that come from the mills where sugar canes are being crushed resemble the sound that the elephants make when they are attacked by the Ari, a mythical creature with a tiger's head, and you can go there and have unlimited crushed sugarcane juice. While singing of the Marutham lands, the poet also points to the Brahmin settlements, the beginnings of Brahmadeyam in that day and age, and he records what the Brahmins would offer to the passing bards. தகைமான் காடியின் வகைப்பட பெருகுவீர். You will receive fragrant vadu mango pickles made from tender mangoes from tall trees. Now this we can surely relate to. The fishermen of the Neithal or the littoral region are called Valayar as they use the fishing nets, and they are described as the protector of water bodies. Describing a seashore town that went by the name Neerpayatru, the scholars opine that Neerpayatru is today's Mahabalipuram. The poet describes the white horses that were imported and the abundant wealth that filled the streets with huge mansions, and how in the upper floors of the mansions there were beautiful women decked in fine jewelry playing games. Women who wore golden anklets, playing ball on the upper decks and playing with karangu seeds made of gold on the fine sands of Pattinam. A bustling port city, there is a very interesting description of a lighthouse. வானம் ஊன்றிய மதலை போல ஏனி சாத்திய ஏற்றரும் சென்னி. There is a tall lighthouse, so tall that it brushes the sky. It has a ladder to climb atop, and there a bright flame that is lit at night pities and invites plying ships in the ocean with strong waves that have lost direction. Long before the Pallavas built their famous temples in Kanchipuram, there were temples dedicated to the tall, dark-skinned god Vishnu, and Urthirankannanar specifically sings about the Vishnu temple at Thiruvekka. பாம்பனை பள்ளி அமர்ந்தோன் அவ்வையின் அருந்திரர் கடவுள் வாழ்த்தி சிறிதெனும் கருங்கோட்டு இன்னியம் இயக்கினர் கழிமின். You will reach the shrine of the one who lies on a bed of snakes. Praise the God who abides there and play your sweet lute with black stem for a while and then leave. In very many verses, the king's generosity of how he sits in his court and receives the bards are described beautifully by Uruthirankannanar. அழியும் தெறலும் எழிய ஆகலின் he begins. He is graceful to those who love him. He shows his wrath to his enemies, while countries he favored flourished under his protection. Kings who desire to cultivate friendship with him come to him like the water in the mountain streams that rushes towards the ocean. In the front yard of his wealthy palace, they wait with tributes of great wealth in trepidation to seek favors. Above all, the king himself was a Sangam poet and has rendered 3 exquisite poems in the Natrinai and 1 poem in the Purananuru. The Puram poem goes, கால்பார் கோத்து ஞாலத்து இயக்கும் காவல் சாகாடு உகைப்போன் மானின் ஊறு இன்றாகி ஆறு இனிது படுமே உய்த்தல் தேற்றான் ஆயின் வைகளும் பகைக்கூழ் அள்ளல் பட்டு மிகப்பல் தீநோய் தலைதலை தருமே. Sung under the Porunmozhi Kanji, which talks of the impermanence of things in life, this beautiful poem shows how a land without an able ruler will suffer even if it has abundant wealth. How a cart with wheels joined to the main rod will move swiftly on the path without obstacles in this world if it was well protected and has a good driver. But if the driver is not skilled, it will get stuck every day in thick and hostile mud, causing immense pain and trouble. Here the driver of the cart is used as a simile to describe an able ruler. Such was the wisdom of the great Sangam kings in those days. We will continue looking at yet another chieftain in the next episode. Vanakkam.